Hello, my name is Anoa Changa.
The Way with Anoa. The Way with Anoa.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 4th, 2016 edition of The Way of Anoa. This is pretty wild because it's October, so this means I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 months now, and you have been here with me, so thank you. Ooh, excuse me, sorry. It's Taco Tuesday. Just finished eating tacos with the kids. Well, I had a quesadilla. They had tacos. But Taco Tuesday, and it's National Taco Day. Pretty wild. But as I was saying, thank you so much for all of you all who participate, share, like, subscribe, and engage. Shout out to the new patrons. Thank you everyone who just makes the Way of Noah a possible endeavor. Folks who you send me links, engaging on Twitter, emails, etc. You guys rock, right? Where would I be without you? Just be aware, courtesy of the Benjamin Dixon Show, I stream on Ben's channel on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. But we also stream live on The Way with Anoa on YouTube as well. I have my own YouTube channel, and we are working on building that channel out. So you're more than welcome to migrate over there and hop in the chat room. And at some point down the line, we will be solely on our YouTube channel there, except for obviously when I would come over and host for Ben. So I'll definitely make sure everyone has, a clear heads up for when that's going to happen. But, the chat room over there is jumping too. So definitely, go on over and just take a gander. I just feel like, Tuesday I come back from the weekend. It's just so much going on. So just going to, make sure I'm just going to jump right into it. But make sure you like the videos. You know what I'm saying? If you watch them, like the videos, share them, tweet them out, share them on Facebook. Definitely subscribe if you have not already subscribed to The Way with Anoa. I know some of you are subscribed to my actual personal YouTube channel. I have my own YouTube channel that just has some random videos on there. But I actually have a YouTube channel for the show, The Way with Anoa. So please definitely go over there, show some love, and share. Help me grow, right? Because we continue to see that as this election cycle drags on, we continue to see the need for independent progressive voices, and I am committed to building out and providing you with, needed information, pertinent information, critical analysis, and a little fun here and there. Speaking of fun, Luke Cage came out this weekend. Well, actually dropped on Friday on Netflix. Netflix apparently crashed. I tried to watch it on Saturday, and Netflix had a little glitch then too. So I'm not done. So no spoilers, please. I saw enough on Twitter already, and I've stayed away from articles. I'm only on I think I fell asleep watching episode 9 last night. But if you are into comics, definitely check it out. It's really good. Great lineup of actors. If you're familiar with, The Good Wife, brother who played Lamont Bishop is starring as Luke Cage. And the main character, well, not the main character, but one of the characters, Shades, is actually, because I'm awful with names tonight, I can't remember any of these actors' names, but I love them all. Only actor's name I can remember is Alfred Woodard and Rosario Dawson, because, the names stand out. But Luke Cage, excellent. He's a superhero. My daughter and I were talking about this. He's a hero, but he's not a superhero in the traditional sense. He's a superhero more how we think of, he's not a merc for hire. He's not necessarily an anti-hero like Deadpool, but he's not like Captain America. He's his own guy, right? And I think they are going to get into the heroes for hire stuff. So it's very exciting. Jessica Jones, Daredevil, also on Netflix. Punisher apparently is coming down the pipeline, and they are, already starting to film for that. So you might get a more detailed conversation, because I did get a text from Ben did you finish watching? It's like I'm working my 30-way through. I got 4.5 episodes left to go. Been a busy weekend. But so just switching a little bit over, like I said, it was National Taco Day. And my daughter ran in to pick up the food. It's Tuesday night, and I rush home to get them squared away, and then to be here with you for an hour, and have a crazy commute coming back from my job. But ordinarily I don't get to cook on Tuesdays, so this is my excuse though to order some food. It's Taco Tuesday, National Taco Day, so we stopped at this really awesome taqueria by our house, and Nayla ran in, to get the food and stuff like that. So she comes out and she hops in the car and she goes, I had to double check with the girl to make sure this ain't one of them establishments that steals people's tips. And I was just like, that's such an odd thing for a kid to say, but she pays attention to the world around her, and we really need to take the time. We should not shelter our kids from real life. I mean, a lot of times as parents, as aunts and uncles, we don't necessarily keep it real, so to speak, with kids and let them know how things work. But for her to even think that, okay, I know to leave a tip. One, she knows we tip. We make sure we try to tip well. And this is not something I always did, but my sister has been in the service industry. So we talked a lot about people who, when you tip, even when you're doing a carry out, because it's still tip servers, it's still tip people who are doing those jobs and stuff. So I was like, you tip, it's like a little amount, not like you tip like real huge or anything. But so she knew to leave a tip or whatever when she was picking up the food, but she was just like, she asked the woman, she was like, do they steal your tips if I leave it for you on the credit card? And the girl just looked at her and was like, no, we get our tips, it's okay. So that was just, I mean, there have been some cases like that in the past few years where people do steal the tips from, there are issues with tip sharing. We're forcing, servers to share their tips with the other staff, as well as, and this is totally, but it's just anecdotal. And my daughter just walked through the living room and made me think about it. But anyway, turn into some news. I wanted to talk a little bit just about a couple news stories and a couple of kind of activism, roundup action alerts I've seen popping up over the weekend. So one of the things that I saw international news, I'll start there and work my way back local, in Poland. So yesterday in Poland, Monday in Poland, there were thousands of women that gathered to boycott a proposed abortion ban. There's a proposed law in Poland that would ban all abortions, period. No abortions at all for any reason. No incest, no rape, no life in danger to the mother, nothing. And this was, it was a blackout day of strike, and this is interesting as we look at this is actually an issue to an extent when we look at the rise of the religious right here in the United States. I think that there is a Roman Catholic population in Poland, and there is an impetus, religious impetus behind the passage of this law. But it hasn't passed. It's pending. But looking at what's happening globally and changes like this, and then we look at what's happening locally. Tonight we have the vice presidential campaign coming up, and we have two candidates. One who holds a similarly absolute view, openly, personally, whatever. And then we also have Tim Kaine on the other side, who personally has the view that he has, but he alleges that he stands to the Democratic line in terms of pro-choice and Hyde Amendment, things of that nature. So I thought this race was interesting because I like to look at examples of activism, and organizing, citizen lobbying, for lack of a better term, too, across the globe, because it can also help us inform how we engage and do our actions and activity here. So yeah, you see, keep your rosaries off my ovaries. It's pretty interesting that I mean, and this would make it illegal. So not only make it, but it's a criminal act. So if a woman gets an abortion, she'd be criminalized. She'd face criminal charges. If a doctor performed an abortion, they would face criminal charges. And it's not even like some of the accounts I read, some of the quotes I read from women, it's just like, it's not even like I'm a diehard feminist, or I think for most of us, you don't have to be a diehard fill in the blank. It's just about making sure that if you have the access and rights to do what needs to be done if and when you need to make that choice. And that's for me what pro-choice is, right? Like I am able, if I need to make this choice, the option is there. Now, are all options and absolute? I mean, there's a lot of debate in scholarly literature and other arguments and scientific arguments out there about where you put the marker at when you prohibit abortions at one point. But an absolute total bar is not okay. I mean, it's just not okay. So that was just something that I saw in the news that isn't really being talked that much about. I think stateside, but I think it's really interesting. Poland is not necessarily some place that I really have paid attention to what's going on there, but I thought this was an interesting case to see um, this type of complete ban. So also, I forgot to mention, I do want to hear from you guys tonight. You don't have to just listen to me babble. We have this debate and stuff going on. I will be live tweeting. But I'm only on until like 8:55, 8:58. So if you want to call in, call in. And I'm just here chopping it up. So I want to chop it over too. Next week, the next 2 weeks, I will have, I'll go back to a rotation of guests. I think actually I have guests for the next 2 or 3 weeks out. So I'll definitely get that schedule up because I can't remember who I booked. I do a lot. I do it all. So, but I try to make sure that I'm here present of mind to chop it up and discuss with you. The kind of like bringing it back now to some local stuff here in Atlanta. There have been 2 things that have been going on. One, we had Black Lives Matter Atlanta and Black Lives Matter. Well, it's not just Atlanta, but here in the South, Black Lives Matter in Atlanta and Black Lives Matter Birmingham. If you know anything about Atlanta and our Black Lives Matter drama, you know that we have two organizations called Black Lives Matter. Here in Atlanta. Only one is actually affiliated with the national umbrella of organizations that we've come to call the group. Now, shouldn't really matter about what group, but there has been some issues and stuff, but that's a whole nother story. But the chapters, the Atlanta chapter and the Birmingham chapter of the national, they came together and they actually went over to Charlotte. Oh, I believe we have a caller calling in. But they went up to Charlotte last week, and then we've also had our Atlanta chapter hour. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from, and what's on your mind?
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Sorry.
No, you're
my name is
fine.
Agechi, and I'm from Green, Indiana. I'm a huge fan of your show.
Thank you.
And well, I guess this is sort of like a throwback.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
Okay, so yeah, it was about what President Obama said in response to Colin Kaepernick and Ben's response,
okay.
and how in a question of blackness. And I guess for me, it's like a relationship to me because I guess I'm not. So I'm a first-generation Nigerian American. Both my parents are from Nigeria, and I spent like a question of like I lived in mostly white communities, and I guess like for me in terms of black and blackness, it's always been a hard thing for me to kind of to grips with, even after like I still haven't really got to think about that. And it's like in this entire like past few years, it's always been really hard because I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess in like terms of what's going on now, it's like a huge thing because I just get really annoyed by like how like, oh, because you're black, it means this or this, that like that weird, like that category that's always put in for African Americans, like everything, like have to act. I'm like, I don't know. How do you deal with it?
So if I understand what you're saying, what the gist, especially with the different cross cultural experiences, right? You're asking about like that kind of like this is the realm of what blackness is in America and how do we fit in it? Is that kind
Yeah.
of, or am I off?
No, that's it.
Okay, awesome. And I do want to say, I do want to say, like, so growing up with an African name, right? You know, you kind of get, and I'm not going to say that my experience is the same as if you're first generation from someplace else, but at the same time, I do understand to an extent what it is to kind of be treated as if you are that other. Because you're not necessarily black like everybody else on the block type of thing. But how do I deal with it? I think that part of it has been I've been very blessed to have the parents that I have and have the community. It was not always, I remember I was on a thread with someone before. We were all having this conversation about how difficult it was. And as someone who was first generation, I think she might have been Nigerian too. First generation Nigerian was just talking about how difficult it was growing up in a black neighborhood because of the way the black kids treat her. I said, honey, I'm, American black. And it was hard for me too, because I think that we see this in many different subsects, regardless of what the racial breakdown is, that when you're different, it's just difficult, unfortunately. And I think maybe it's a little different for this generation growing up right now. Kids growing up right now, they seem to embrace difference a little bit better than for those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s more so. I think there was more of a focus on conformity. I think now difference is accepted a little bit more. But how do I deal with it? I focus and gravitate towards people who appreciate and understand me for me, and I definitely do not allow other people to define what it is for me to be, a Black American, my Blackness, my Africanness, whatever that may be. And I know that's not necessarily like, the fountain of knowledge type of answer, but I really just think that it's great to find people who we can relate to and actually dialogue and flush these ideas out with. Because I have a whole group of sister friends, and we don't have the same experiences or upbringings at all. We don't have the same definition of what it is to be Black, but I think we just try to define who we are and not define, Blackness. It is what it is, and I think it's what we make it. And I definitely appreciate you calling in. And if you ever want to chat some more, just hit me up on Twitter, shoot me an email, thewayofanoa.com, or call in again. I appreciate you so much. So just talking a little bit, if you guys want to call in, I'm here, call in. But just want to talk a little bit, just like I said, I just want to give it like just a little activist shout out to what has been going on. So here in Atlanta, Black Lives Matter Atlanta, and then other organizations, they basically did a citizens action at city council yesterday because the city of Atlanta and the mayor are trying to tear down this large homeless shelter, and they want to build a first responder, some type of station, which, not saying that that's not necessary, but to displace the homeless to build this other public service, facility, it's a very, and it's not like that there's a clear plan to replace the shelter that's being removed. So I thought that was just a good example of people not, combining the activists. Everyone's like, oh, people are always protesting. Well, they showed up, they gathered the people, and they showed up, and council chambers were packed yesterday. And then in Birmingham, there was an organization, there was a protest and support organized for some high school students who actually ran into some issues at school. I think one of the young women had it was either a Black Lives Matter shirt or a Trayvon Martin shirt, something representing, something conscious and cultural. And they supported, kind of the kids doing their own type of protest action at the high school. This is in Birmingham. So just a little bit, I kind of try and keep and see what's going on. And then what was the other thing? Oh yeah, also here in Atlanta, shout out to students from Kennesaw State University. Kennesaw State University not only has been very active around issues involving undocumented students and the situation with tuition, with them being eligible for in-state tuition, but students recently were protesting the new president. The new president of Kennesaw State is one of the architects basically behind our own, anti fill in the blank laws. He's a, for lack of a better term, he's a bigot. um, and he was installed as president of Kennesaw State, which has, again, like I said, it's insane that this man has been made president, and the students organized and galvanized, and some of the folks involved were very involved, with Organizing for Bernie Sanders. Not saying that only the people who organize for Bernie Sanders are the ones who are organizing these protests, but there's some overlap there, some good people involved. So I just want to give you just a quick highlight on those two things, and then the final thing I want to talk about, like the final two pieces. One involves education, and this is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So those are the two things that I'm getting ready to shift to right now. EdWalk, if you guys have seen the hashtag, if you're on Twitter, or I don't know if they're using it on Facebook too, but if you've seen the hashtag on Twitter, EdWalk, right now in New York, this is day 3. This is the end of day 3 of Education Walk. Happening in New York State. There are, let me get my notes up because I have notes about this so I can get this right. Just want to give a shout out to Zakiya Ansari, and the Justice Alliance, and many others who are engaged and involved in this. This is the 10th anniversary of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity court decision. A few years ago, because of the budgeting crisis, they had a freeze on funding. But basically, and actually this walk has been happening, I think when I saw that this walk started in like 2003, actually. It's the 10th anniversary of a court case against the state of New York about disproportionate funding for predominantly, students of color across the state of New York. There's some really great pictures and stuff. If you can, I've tweeted out links to support, some of the organizers in their walk, but people are actually walking. This is something that's done annually, but they're demanding that, the Governor Cuomo and the other bureaucrats in Albany actually make sure that schools are properly funded. I think it's a tune of like $3 billion approximately is actually owed to these schools. And this is funding that they're actually entitled to already. Not funding that they're saying they should get prospectively. This is what has already been owed and has not been paid. So I thought this was really interesting because I actually had never knew that this was happening. And there are nationwide education efforts going on right now, right? If you look at the ballots, if you look at what's happening as we go, we're so focused. There's such a hyper focus on the presidential election cycle, right? And I just mentioned Governor Cuomo, who is a huge supporter of Secretary Clinton. We have another wonderful champion of education in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, another Clinton supporter. I really encourage everyone to look at. I just saw something in California. There's like, I don't know if it was like 15. I forget how many propositions are on the ballot for California coming up. But there are a lot of things coming up in this election cycle. We have approximately a month until we all vote nationwide. And, here in Atlanta, we have opportunity school districts, which would give the governor, our Republican governor, control over quote unquote failing schools. So there are a lot of things happening right now across the country that are affecting our daily lives that address the local level. We're so focused, or we're trying to shut it all out and not listen. But I encourage you, I implore you to become aware of what is pending where you are, or if you have family members, right, and you want to do a little extra, at least help make sure they're aware of what's happening where they are, right? Because if you at least can do that much, that creates a few more informed, educated, involved voters who are then able to go out there and make a difference when they go to the voting booth, versus people who don't know what's going on because they've been so busy either paying attention to the dumpster fire or ignoring the dumpster fire, but they overlook some real meaningful changes that are coming down the pipeline. North Carolina, you have a major governor's race going on in North Carolina. Apparently, McCrory, the idiot governor, with HB2, there's a big push to not only repeal HB2, and everyone focuses on the transgender bathroom aspect, which, yes, is absolutely egregious. But in that bill, there are also very detrimental employment law provisions, labor issues that are also in there. So the entire thing just absolutely needs to be repealed. And a recent polling showed that his Democratic challenger was actually up 6 points. So if you're in North Carolina, that's a race to pay attention to, also to see who else is on the ballot and what other issues are on the ballot. I was actually in North Carolina this past weekend visiting the grandparents, and there were several commercials on the radio for different things going on locally. But one thing that was really cool when I was there was that the board, their county board of elections, had actually sent them out a guide for people who were running for judge, right? And at least if you could talk to people, again, if you could talk to people about at least like who are the people who are running, what are they running for, what is the breakdown, that helps make the big difference. Because this dumpster fire, regardless of what your personal opinion is of what's going on with the national election, the presidential election, that is actually something that's really necessary and needed. And we need to make sure that people are aware of who to vote for, where they need to be voting. I mean, we can't check out of this process. Even if you don't think, you don't care, just burn it all down, at least help engage others, help them make a good decision. I mean, I hope you're not, complete nihilist, anarchist mode. This might not be the situation we were hoping for, coming out of the primary, but hey, we're here and we're gonna make some lemonade, right? We're gonna do what we gotta do. So the ed walk, wrong way. It's like looking in the mirror, everything's backwards. But ed walk is absolutely, I mean, this is citizen action. And like I said, if you are on Twitter, follow Zakia Ansari. She is posting, her and her son are walking among many others, many other educators and parents and teachers alike. Shout out to Catherine Bresler with People for Bernie. Kat teaches second grade. I can't remember. Kat does so much. But with People for Bernie, Kat is also taking part in Ed Walk. I mean, there are a lot of people out there grinding and stuff. And this is when we talk about revolution, right? We talk about revolution. We talk about political engagement. We talk about building out the possibilities, building out the tools and resources necessary for a better tomorrow. These are the type of endeavors and initiatives that we're talking about. This is what actually changes things on the local level and it impacts our daily lives, not electing somebody to sit in that White House. I mean, I hear everybody about how awful. I hear you. I do. I listen to it all weekend from the grandparents. They had MSNBC on all weekend. I understand. But we need to be active and engaged and aware of what's going on in our communities, around our communities, and what's going on at the state level, because this is absolutely part of it. This is an issue. The state of New York for over a decade has not adequately funded communities and schools in communities of color. That is a problem. That is absolutely a problem. So the other issue, a bit of activism I want to talk about was well, actually I guess I had two more, but I'll try and get to the other one. But this one is really important to me. Free Brescia. This young woman, like I said, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'm reading, like I said, because I want to make sure I get this right. But this young woman she's basically being held in juvenile detention in, I think it's Trumbull County, Ohio. This case is heartbreaking. From the facts that we have, she killed her father, protecting her mother, and herself. And we see cases where children, where family members, where women are put in positions where they have to defend themselves because they're dealing with abuse. Now, I remember reading an article earlier on where this deceased family said that, oh, they're making it up. That's not true. We never heard of any abuse. It's so disheartening that we're so willing to just dismiss the possibility of what someone could have been going through. Right. By all accounts, this is not a young woman this is a child. She's 14. She's younger than my own daughter. This is not a young woman who I keep saying young woman because the charges, right, and the way she's being treated. But she's a little girl. She's a teenager. And this is not just something that from by all accounts about her character, about who she is, about what she's doing, that she would just, haul off and just kill somebody. I mean, it's more likely than not that the extenuating circumstances that have been discussed were present when this happened. And she has been, she's facing a charge of aggravated murder for defending herself and family against the unrelenting terror and abuse of her father. And when I was thinking about this when I was driving home, right, domestic violence, and like I said, domestic violence awareness month, because a lot of times people are like, why didn't you call the police, or why didn't you do this? You know, people say they'll change or they won't do this or whatever, or it's unpredictable. You know, if you're living in a constant state of fear because you never know what could, because this is the thing, people try to look at domestic violence, people try to look at the aggression inflicted on others as if it's some rational, predictable thing that you can go down a checklist. And in a lot of situations you can't. You know, and who knows what actually was going on in the household? Who knows why the mom made the decisions that he did? Who knows? But what we do know is that this little girl, we do know that Brescia is sitting in a juvenile detention center. She is facing charges of aggravated. Like I said, I got a little girl. She's a little younger than my own daughter. She's facing aggravated murder charges. There's some discussion about whether or not they'll even charge her as an adult. Like her whole life, her whole future, and she did what she thought she should do in that moment, right? And she should be getting therapy. She should be sheltered with love and support right now. And instead, she has to sit in juvenile detention and fend for herself. So there's a WordPress site that's set up. I tweeted out earlier. I'll tweet it out again. Has several different articles and stuff about her. But what I wanted to talk about is that there's a day of action tomorrow, and she has a court hearing on Thursday. So there's a day of action tomorrow and Thursday. Use the hashtag free FREE Brescia BRESHA. And you know, people are writing open letters to the prosecutors. People are writing her letters, sending her love and support. Actually, there is a book list set up if you would like to go online and send her a book to read. And you could also attach a little note like, you know, stay strong, little sister, or something like that. But the actions of solidarity that are being there, you can check the list to see if there's a solidarity action being planned near you. But you can take direct action by organizing a direct action event. You can donate to the defense fund. You can sign the petition demanding that the Trumbull County prosecutor, Janice Watkins, drop the charges and free her now. You can send her letters of encouragement. I would say do this. If you do anything else on the list, I would say do this as well. Don't just do, like I say, send her a letter and do any of that other stuff too. Because that, you know, can you imagine what that would be like to have that overwhelming support from people? Like, wow. Because I can only imagine what she's going through right now. And I saw a mention earlier that she might have been on suicide watch. You know, there's so much out there. We have these academic conversations about Black Lives Matter and how young Black women are more likely to be criminalized and penalized in the justice system than their white counterparts. And we have all these, you know, academic conversations about this stuff, but this is real life that's happening for this young woman, for this little girl, this teenager. I keep saying young woman, but she's 14. Like, she's only 14. I look at my 15-year-old comes and cuddles up on my lap still. Right? And giggles. She probably does the same thing with her mom, but she can't right now. You can also educate communities about the criminalization of Black girls and survivors of domestic violence. Like I said, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it's disheartening to see that there aren't more of the domestic violence organizations have not rallied around her and her cause. And often we see that, right? We see this oftentimes, you know, Black women and our issues. We're supposed to help everybody else. We're supposed to get out the vote. We're supposed to do this. We're supposed to lead. We're supposed to lead the charge. And so often when it involves us, very few people are standing there with us. So I implore you all to definitely check out the website and see what else is there. And spread the word. Like I said, I'm tweeting this out again right now. Because I think this is really important. And I definitely think that we need to pay attention to, I mean, we see the names, we see the hashtags, and we're so quick and so ready to jump on stuff. You know, oh my God, there's been another shooting of a Black man. Well, we have this young Black woman, this Black girl child, teenager, whose life we can save right now, whose innocence can be preserved, right? Whose future we can invest in. we absolutely need to do what we can, however we can. So I myself, along with my girl child, will be definitely writing an open letter to the prosecutor and sending little sister some words of encouragement as well. That's the least we can do. And I know we all work, we all have other things, but at least you can do that much. The least you can do is sign a petition, share the information, send a letter. That's the least we can do. So moving on, the last bit of activism, other update I saw from, excuse me, that's some tacos. That's some tacos. Injustice boycott starting December 5th, 2016. Sean King has written, we've talked about this, Sean King has written a series of pieces about what to do, how to engage around this issue. Police violence has been gripping the nation. And so he put forth a piece on the 30th about basically laying out his plan about the need for long-term, basically looking at the Montgomery bus boycott as a model, as an example for boycotting, an issue of a successful example. And this is what the outcomes be. You can go to the website, you can sign up to join the boycott and find out more information. But the idea is that sustained protests can lead to meaningful action and change. And my thought always is that, as with voting, as with petition drives and actual outrage and outcries and protests, like this type of stuff is a tool to be used in conjunction with other stuff. So I definitely encourage people to check out the article. I'll get ready to tweet that out as well. But go check out the website and just read more and see what the plan is overall. And then it's a tool. It's a tool to be used, to be leveraged. So on your local level with organizing and engaging in activism, see who's already doing some of the work and this issue particularly about police violence. See who's already working in your community. Do you have a local ACLU chapter working on something? Do you have a Black Lives Matter chapter working on something? Do you have a Surge chapter, SURJ? Look it up. Do you have showing up for racial justice? I think that's right. Look and see who's already starting to work, and can you lend and add value? You don't necessarily have to always recreate the wheel, right? There might be something else already going. So definitely check out this website and see what's going on. And then if you like it, if you think that it fits with your personal philosophy on what needs to happen, share it. Get other people in your community involved and engaged. Maybe start an Injustice Together team, right? Your block or your neighborhood. And I really do think that the idea of having sustained boycotts, having very specific targeted boycotts, along with outreach to your city council, to those decision makers and policy makers in your community who would be directly responsible for making these decisions, for changing, the rules of engagement, use of force. If this is a great segue into, if you didn't get a chance to see it Friday and you haven't seen it yet, check out our panel that we had last Friday, police violence and systemic racism. We had Michael J. Wood Jr. and we also were joined by Dr. Karen Johnson. And this is some of the stuff that we talked about in terms of use of force and how do we address these issues. And what Sean has laid out is I think a good piece of the overall strategy. I think our overall strategy has many different pieces, and I think this is where he felt that he could add value. I don't mean to speak for him. I know he's a very busy dude, but maybe one day we can grab him and bring him back on. I mean, he's been on with Ben. We have a caller going to come through, so I'll wait for that caller to connect. But last Friday, we had we had that piece. It was great. Definitely check it out and see. It's about a little over 90 minutes. Well, just about 90 minutes, but it was a really good, robust conversation, and you'll be very impressed with our guests from Friday, and then we'll have the next one on next Friday, the 14th. We're doing these on Friday evenings, spacing them out about 2 weeks. But I definitely think that Injustice Together, it's another initiative. It's definitely something to check out. I will tweet out the link to Sean's article that actually explains it in more detail. So that's my little bit of an activism roundup. Just shining a light on some things that I thought that were going on, that I saw that was really great. Because again, no matter what happens in November, no matter who you're supporting and voting for, we have to do what needs to be done in our local communities. I mean, on a state level, and I think it's great that we have these national voices, we have these national partnerships and coalitions, but at the same time, what might get whittled down in a national agreement, a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach is not going to work. What is working, or what would work in Atlanta, it might work in Birmingham because they're right next door, it might not. But it's not necessarily going to be what works in Milwaukee. What works in Milwaukee is not necessarily going to work, in Phoenix. I mean, and vice versa. When we start looking at suburban and rural communities, what works, back in Charleston, West Virginia. This is actually interesting. I saw that the Charleston, because I used to live in West Virginia. I saw the Charleston caller. Hi, what's your name? Where you calling from? And comment or question.
Hi, Anoa. My name is Mike, and I'm calling from Texas.
Hey, Mike. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, and I love your show, and I know it's going to blow up huge because you're fantastic, and your spirit is going to connect with people.
Awesome. Thank you. So what can I do for you tonight?
Oddly, both my wife and I heard of you in separate ways. I found you through the Ben Dixon Show, and I was talking about something that you said to my wife, and I said, I'm watching this new show called The Way with Anoa, and she said, Anoa Changa? And she knew you through your social media stuff, because I guess you're a bit active on Facebook and Twitter. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Well, I don't do Facebook at all, so I only know you through the show, but she subsequent to that has reported posts to me that you're responsible for, so she follows you with interest in that way. I follow you with interest in this way. And I don't know if you happen to know anything about a bit of a social media setback that progressivism may be experiencing right now, and I wondered if you would comment on it. She belongs to a number of Facebook pages, and I don't need to name them, but one that's been quite active and very committed to Bernie Sanders for a long time. A number of people are being kicked off of now, Bernie supporters, and the rumor going around, and I don't have any substantiation for this. This is just rumor. The rumor is that the page has been bought by Correct the Record, and that this is happening to progressive sites all over through Facebook. That Correct the Record is simply giving monetary compensation to admins of these progressive web pages and then coming in and trying to turn the pages into pro-Hillary web pages. And I don't know if you know anything about that, or if you can comment on it, or if it's complete news to you.
Okay, so what I will say, thank you again. Thank you and your wife for I appreciate it so much. It's always great to hear people actually. When I went to the People Summit in June, it was so weird to meet people in Chicago from all over who would actually be like, "Hey, I know you." I said, "Really? Why? Why do you know me?" But then, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. In terms of the Facebook stuff, so I do know there are some kooky things going on with Facebook and Twitter, and I was going to mention this soon in the future. Not so distant future, we will be rolling out, some alternatives for people to consider using through Media Revolt, which is our parent, umbrella organization for Podcast Revolution and your podcast, and shout out to Michael Salomon and the rest of our team. So we will have some alternatives at some point in time for people, if we're concerned about some of the hookiness. And this actually brings me to the story of today about Yahoo. Apparently Yahoo has been in cahoots with surveilling your mail, your email and stuff, which Google actually does the same thing. So it really does raise issues and concerns with national security, but that's getting off topic for this conversation. So do I have any factual information? I do not. I would not be surprised though if this is happening. And I would say a few things, that either you have people who decided they are going to be Hillary volunteers, campaign volunteers, who ran those pages. There were some pages, so I run a couple of Facebook pages and Facebook groups too. Most of them directly related to Bernie Sanders, and so we did see issues where people were being booted off and groups were being converted because they had been infiltrated by Clinton supporters. And actually, this happened, to some extent before the primary was even over, but we've seen it happening. There are quite a few people who actually support Jill Stein, and the groups went green. But so we did see that happen. We have been flooded. So I am an admin on African Americans for Bernie page and People of Color for Bernie. And so we have been flooded with requests from people volunteering for the Hillary Clinton campaign about why we need to be advocating for her and publishing information. So I do know there are attempts. I have been told by an unnamed source that there are certain organizations that want the African Americans for Bernie page, for example. So I do know that there is some type of business out there that is involved with that. I don't know the specifics and I don't have an actual source to cite, but anecdotally, I do know there is some hokiness that's going on with the pages. I do know that there are some pages where they feel that the constant barrage of anti-Clinton comments have been a detractor, so they've gotten rid of those people. If you're overly critical of Hillary Clinton, I actually unfollowed one of the pages. Not because I understand what pages have to do for the sake of their own personal administration, but I think when you have grown a page and grown a group and you've decided to like completely change, to all of a sudden get rid of those people that have been with you is odd. But I encourage people who social media is a weird place, but it's a great place, but it's a weird place as well. It's a very seventh grade mean girl cafeteria place. But I really do encourage everyone, if you do find a safe space, I mean, you know, you and your wife can always come join us in our Progressive Army. We have a Progressive Army discussion group on Facebook. You know, that's a space where we're trying to encourage discussion, encourage people to come and like, share, but share and discuss, because we really actually want to promote good, robust discussion. If you have friends who are conservative, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be anti-Hillary to be in spaces. I mean, I'm not necessarily anti-Hillary. I'm not pro-Hillary. I'm kind of agnostic, to quote Wendy Muse. I'm agnostic on this subject. But yes, I do know there have been some weird things going on with the Facebook pages. I mean, it's a hot commodity because especially a lot of these Bernie group pages in particular, or progressive groups, people really put in a lot of time and effort and worked very hard for Senator Sanders. And the idea, the thought was that we would just turn it all over to support Hillary Clinton. And that's not happened. I mean, when you grow thousands, tens of thousands, you put in all that extra hour. And, you know, as volunteers, we worked, you know, on our own. We were self-directed, we were self-motivated, and we were unpaid. And we worked very hard. So to just turn over anything, and some of the stuff I've received on African Americans for Bernie and People Come for Bernie have been very condescending and rude. And it's just like, you all really don't know. So we see the different pieces placed in the media about how millennials need to do this. I got an email actually today from DFA about how it is the fate of the free world rests on the votes of progressives, people of color, and millennials. Huh? Who the hell decided that that was an okay thing to write? The fate of the free world? No. You people should have voted for Bernie damn Sanders and we wouldn't have had this problem right now. Nah, but for real. I mean, it's like we have a month out. It's crunch time. I do see some changes. Sometimes, you know, you say stuff and you wonder, like, are people actually spying on me and listening to what I'm saying? Because now I've seen the Clinton campaign is actually hitting at Mike Pence. The VP presidential debates actually going to come up in a few minutes. But that's been my thing. It's like, you know, if you really want to get people to vote for your ticket and against Bush, against Bush, against Trump, you need to start talking about how much of a disaster Mike Pence is. And, you know, I've said it before, like that Ted Cruz would be the only candidate that could get me to vote for her. The fact that Mike Pence is possibly the brains behind the operation, that's some scary stuff, man. He is a super bigot. He might be nicer, you know, in terms of his verbiage than Donald Trump, but he is the big of the two of them. He's the real bigot because he has the legislative history to back it up. So yes, it is hard being a progressive, and one of the problem is as long as we use the instruments of corporate America to do our activism, we will always have limitations and challenges, and it is imperative on us to not just build out and support independent media, but to build out our own platforms and opportunities for engaging and building together, because there are different, you know, proposals and policies in play, and if things are, you know, that's why, you know, net neutrality was such a big deal for, you know, before, and just even some of the provisions within TPP. I mean, there's so much that rests on the ability for us to have the free exchange of information and access to things like YouTube and the internet. to be able to engage in dialogue like this. Otherwise, it limits our ability, to organize, mobilize, educate, and revitalize the movement, right? Like the struggle is real. So I definitely appreciate that conversation because I don't, like I said, I don't know for certain, but it wouldn't surprise me because Corrected Record's entire purpose is propaganda. Propaganda, promote, and it's one thing to promote your candidate, but Correct the Record through their little trolls. I mean, I'm sure many of you, if you're on Twitter in particular, you've experienced, you can spot them a mile of the way. They're not very educated, and not that I'm educated in terms of book smart, but educated about the issues, educated about what's going on. They don't really have much of that. They are all over the place, and they can't make a valid point, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on. So I would not be surprised if Correct the Record has somehow, gathered up some of these pages because that's prime real estate. If you have a page that you grew to like 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, that's a huge reach, right? If you ever look at some of these pages and how many likes and shares they get, that's huge and that's easy. So, and a lot of people are engaging. I mean, digital media, digital activism, digital organizing in and of itself is not the only thing, but I think especially when they're talking about so many of us who trying to get people over to the other side, because people may have noticed past few months some of your favorite pages start posting like really weird stuff. You're like, huh, what, why? So it's been a process, but it's something, but it's not going. This is we're entering a new age, and we're gonna have to be more vigilant than ever. So I'm actually training. I'm telling the kids on their breaks they need to learn how to start making apps and stuff, so we really can start having our own stuff because this is crucial. I mean, we already see issues with Twitter and with Facebook censoring information, censoring hashtags, censoring trending topics. We've seen Google doing this. Well, Google runs it all, right? So yeah. So that is pretty much the roundup for tonight. We have the VP debate coming up in like 5-10 minutes. And I believe there will be post-debate coverage tonight, courtesy of the Benjamin Dixon Show. Awesomeness. Been in the crew, always bring it. Hopefully my microphone and camera will work this evening, so I'll be able to join in as well. But yeah, so yeah, go ahead. About to welcome my producer, Mr. David, on screen real quick.
Hey all, I'm usually back here, don't show my face at all. Sometimes you see me on Ben's show occasionally, but I wanted to pop in and just promote Anoa. It sounds better coming from somebody else. Anoa shared with us that back in the backstage area with Progressive Army that her grandparents bought some of her merchandise. And I just thought that it would be cool to show it off a little bit. I plan on buying some. No pressure to anybody else, but in case no one knew that it was available, I wanted to, if I can get it up here real quick. There it is. So if you go to
they're excited about it too. It's on their counter.
So if you go to the waywithanoa.com, there are links for merchandise, just like on a bunch of our friends' sites. Michael Solomon, Ben has one, I believe, and you can get gear if you want to show off who you listen to. And it's just another way if you want some merchandise and you want to show off your support separately from Patreon or anything else. It's just another way that you can do so. So I just thought that it might sound better coming from somebody that supports it but isn't herself. But that's it from me. Back to you, Anoa.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, David. David's awesome. Round of applause for David. I don't have an applause machine like Ben does. We're gonna give him a round of applause. This is what we used to do it when I was in English class. My teacher had when you did something really great, you could pick one of the goofy applauses off the thing, and so we'd all do a round of applause when someone shared. But anyway, just to close out, there's a lot that we can do. Like I said, I've got in discussion with people. I don't tell people who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I appreciate that people. Most of you don't tell me who to vote for or what to do. I think you've learned by now. I spent the weekend with my grandparents, and they tried to tell me who to vote for and what to do, but we found common ground on the fact that we cannot continue to lay down and allow our state and local elections to be relatively unattended. I mean, we have such abysmal turnout at the state and local level. Same thing with midterm elections. We have to be active, engaged, and involved always and forever going forward. Whatever you decide to do at the national level, Just make peace with your decision and make it happen. Check out the VP debate. VP debates don't necessarily make or break it, but they can shed light into the campaign, into the two sides. But also, what's awesome that's happening is the Green Party, John Mubaraka, VP candidate on the Green Party ticket, will be crashing, will be occupying the debate tonight, courtesy of Democracy Now! So definitely check that out. If you don't want to watch the two, regular mayo and olive oil mayo, there's a great picture on Twitter I tweeted out earlier. It's hilarious. But if you don't want to watch them too, I'm out. This has been With the Way of Anoa. Thank you very much. See ya.
The Way.